Hello, my name is Mike Butcher. I'm the founder of the Europas Awards, and this is going to be a one-on-one interview with Sachin De Duggal, CEO and founder of BuilderAI. Now, COVID-19 set digital transformation into overdrive. Consumers and the businesses that serve them moved online at a pace that analysts pre-pandemic thought would take at least a decade longer. So how have businesses made the transition? What sectors are moving rapidly ahead? What's going on? The reason we're talking to Sachin is because BuilderAI is one of the key movers about getting not getting startups, but getting any kind of business online. Now, BuilderAI is a former winner of last year's Hottest AI Startup Award, so it seems appropriate to interview him today. And of course, he's also a serial entrepreneur whose AI-powered platform, BuilderAI, raised $29.6 million in 2018 to help make building software as easy as ordering a pizza. So, Sachin, thanks very much for joining us at the Europas Awards. So let's get on the same page first. Let's talk about how COVID-19 set digital transformation into overdrive. What are the kinds of things you've seen in the last 18 months in terms of customer business usage? What sort of things has it meant for businesses in the last year and a half, do you think?
So I think it's really interesting, Mike. Like many folks, we sort of saw COVID hit the top of our funnel in the middle of February. And there was this sort of 5 or 6 day period where everything stopped. I think it was around February 6th, if I remember correctly. And it was pretty frightening because you sort of didn't know what happened. We first thought someone had unplugged the analytics or that the company card wasn't working because we thought the ads maybe weren't playing. I mean, it was the most asinine of reasons that we were going through. And actually what we realized was that everybody had just freaked out in a very short period of window. And then as we sort of entered late March, early April, you remember there used to be that curve that people used to say early adopters, late adopters, and then sort of right at the end, you'd have mainstream. And I think it was sometime in the middle of April, it's like we flashed through all three of the first 3 stages of adoption in a weekend. And we have seen grocery stores, school nurseries, departments inside big companies ordering software at midnight or on a weekend. We've seen people waking up at 3 a.m. local time and then actually having a conversation with someone from our team in the appropriate time zone to think about something that they're building. And to me, that has just been really unprecedented. Like, we've just never seen anything like that before. If I give you an example, last week, we did $1 million in one day. For many large companies, that's not a huge amount, but for us, that's our highest sale ever in a single 24-hour period. And what we're starting to see was that if you looked at those customers, you had a mix of grocery stores, a mix of restaurant owners, and then you had like a couple of large sort of departments inside big enterprises. We're seeing that one thing very unique though between them, which is the customer doesn't want to build software. And that sounds like an oxymoron. The customer wants to order software, and I think that's a huge shift.
And that's it's worth reminding ourselves at this point that of what BuilderAI actually does, because we've had website builders before, but what you're doing is you're enabling people to build apps, and of course people live through apps today, don't they? But I think it's interesting how what you've done is you've made it possible for people to build, as you said just now, a grocery store in an app. But I mean, that sounds incredibly complicated. I mean, how lightweight are these kinds of grocery store or delivery apps?
So to give you a sense, we can now ship in the order of between 30 minutes to 3 hours for a grocery store app, what we call the Studio Store, which is really enabling the smallest of our customers. That used to otherwise take 16 weeks. And by shipping something like this, it's not like we're saying, oh, here's like a really basic grocery store app or a restaurant app because you can't afford the real thing. This is like full blown. It has, shopping cart, customer loyalty, click and collect, all the things that you would expect from a big grocery store but now compressed in to something that a small business can sort of easily get its hands around. And a lot of that is, I guess, testament to your point of sort of how we've built the platform, rather than trying to build a template builder or a web builder. We took the approach of saying, 80% of all software is the same thing. Now, how many times has someone built login? Or how many times has someone built a Stripe integration or a checkout screen or a shopping basket? If we can actually take all of those instances and just write the code once and then use it many times, yet allow people like that last mile customization, we can effectively build anything from an order management system for a $9 billion cash and carry that does $1 million of transactions a day, through to what a grocery store might need, which also has bits of order management and bits of customer loyalty built into it. And I think that's really what we're sort of seeing as there is no lightweight. All customers want the real thing. And I think as small businesses now, their principal route of survival is digital. Whereas before it was a nice to have.
Well, absolutely. And I suppose, but what we've seen basically is we've gone from propellers to jet engines, haven't we, in the last year? Almost overnight. It's been absolutely transformational. What about how do you think the pandemic's changed consumer behaviour? They expect everything pretty much on demand now. Is this going? And also, do you think these kinds of behaviours are going to be baked in long term?
That's a great question, Mike. It's one that we think about a lot. Not only because our customers are sort of consumer in their approach because they're not technical, but also our customer's customer, right? So we've done like a bunch of studies where, we go to a coffee shop owner and say, do you want to build an app? No, I don't want to build an app. Then you go to a coffee shop owner and say, do you think the coffee shop industry needs an app? And they'll give you like 50 reasons why it needs an app. But it's the same person that 30 seconds ago said they didn't need an app. And so a lot of what we're starting to see is content is really working to get people to understand exactly how their industry is changing. I think the second thing that we're seeing universally is that our customers have realized there are going to be software-powered businesses, even if they're selling lemons, right? Or if they're selling wine, or if they're selling underwear. They're a software-powered business, and the underlying commodity or whatever it is that they're selling or the underlying service may not be software. I think the second thing is they're hearing it from their customers. So I think what has happened during the pandemic is a bunch of mental models have been created. People are now much more comfortable ordering in. People are much more comfortable doing a click and collect. I think restaurants have obviously seen a huge resurgence, but also people are much more cautious when they're going to restaurants. So, they really do want to know, have you got some sort of policy in place? They do want to know, when is it busy, not busy? And so you're starting to see like big behavior changes in even doing the most simplest of things that we were doing before. And I'd say the last one that has been really interesting is, everybody always used to say that, well, there's only 10 apps you need, and you never need more than 10 apps. I think what we're now seeing is now there's 20 apps you need. And there's going to be a part of them that are global apps, the WhatsApps, the Facebook Messengers, the Signals, the social networks, the Instagram, so on and so forth. Then there's going to be a bunch of national apps, maybe Get, maybe Addison Lee. And then there's going to be a bunch of local apps. If I look at my own phone, I love Marouche. So I have the Marouche app. I really like this Persian restaurant. I have their app because actually I get a bigger set of the menu. They run special deals. And I feel like I'm also contributing to the restaurant directly and having some sort of, I guess, digital relationship with them. And so we're seeing that actually the end customer process is changing considerably.
Do you predict a sort of disintermediation going on between the big delivery apps which have taken positions and your customers building their own apps and having a direct relationship with their customers via your app that they've basically built on your platform?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there was a really interesting article that came out by the App Institute sort of middle of last year. And it was like, what's the most frequently searched for term by restaurant owners? and it's hard to cut my delivery cost. Because actually they're giving lion's share of the delivery cost of their revenue to these aggregators. But actually there's a second issue, which is if I'm a restaurant or I'm a whatever marketplace participant, and then I'm sending my customers to the aggregator. Imagine I'm Bombay Palace, great Indian restaurant, and I'm sending my customers to Deliveroo. Now they see Jamevar and they see like a bunch of other Indian restaurants. I've just lost a customer because maybe I don't have a dish available. Maybe it's like, they see the 5-star rating on another one, or there's a special offer. And restaurants are becoming really sort of awake with this now. They're like, well, why would I want to lose my own customers? I want to use the aggregators for inbound, but what's loyal to me, I want to keep with me. And you'll actually see this in many of the aggregators now. Restaurants are putting in like a slip of paper into the packaging of the food saying, get my app and you'll get a special offer or something or the other. So people have figured it out that it's not interesting for them.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating behavior, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and ultimately it's like digital, non-digital marketing, but they've got a captive audience to go after.
And so I guess what you're also saying is that this is actually a kind of a long-term trend, effectively now, that they're going to want their own relationship with the customer, and if they can build that app super easily, then why would they not, right?
Exactly, and I think the costs have really dropped. Companies like ours are driving the price down. So we actually earlier on this year launched free. Last year we launched Redux and maybe 3 months free. We said, what, companies are coming out of the lockdown. Let's just give it free for the first 50 or the first 100 orders. People get comfortable because we've taken away the product risk at that point. And if it's working for them, like if you can do 100 orders a month or 50 orders a month, then why wouldn't you continue down it? And I think that's been really powerful to see. And you're starting to see small businesses become very savvy in what they want.
Right. So, and let's turn to your experiences as a founder during the pandemic and your company. I think a lot of people would be very interested to know how a startup like yours has managed to deal with the pandemic, how it's reorganized. I know that obviously you've got a big team in India and they've had some really tough times. So what sort of things kind of happened to BuilderAI during this period?
So look, we came out of late beta in November 19. Then we saw what happened in February. We took like the difficult steps in April. So we made an 11% reduction in headcount. We did a 30 to 40% reduction in salaries, 65% reduction in marketing, 50% overall reduction in OpEx. But we said, look, we believe there's going to be tailwinds. And so all of the pay cuts we did, we gave people options at a discounted valuation. So we felt, look, and I remember saying to folks, I know options doesn't put food on the table, but there is this 5% probability that we come out of this really well, and you will end up getting more than what you gave up. But trust us, and we will restore comp as fast as we can. And I remember it was sort of around this time last year as a town hall, people were in tears. You sort of, it's like you're never trained for this, and there's no sort of class that you can do that gets you comfortable. I think you just have to learn sort of on the job to become wartime. I look at, we got to December, we restored comp, so it went back up. We continued to grow. Overall revenues grew 4x in monthly revenue. Studio grew 8x monthly revenue since April. And then we actually allowed our teams to be able to cash out their options. So they got a 30% premium on the money that they gave up. So I remember having a town hall exactly a year later saying, you remember I said there was that really small probability that stuff would be better than when you gave up? Well, it happened. And I think, a lot of that for me was that it was a crucible moment in the company multiple times through the year, and seeing the team come together actually just sets us up correctly for the future. So that was a big learning. And then I think the other part of the pandemic is just, you just don't know. Like we opened India. India was our first office to reopen. So we have an office on the West Coast in London, in India. India's our largest office. We built an app for staggered re-entry. Like we did the whole works. And Mike, we opened the office for 2 weeks. Because as soon as we opened, 2 weeks later, the second wave came in. And, just when I thought we were through the heat of it, Saurabh, my co-founder, and I was spending mornings buying oxygen concentrators and trying to find hospital beds. And we did a vaccination drive today because we gave up on sort of a public sector approach. And so we actually went and sorted out a vaccination camp in our office. So anyone and their families that could get it. But the first 2 hours of our day literally goes for at least a month and a half was trying to figure out where can we get someone a bed, who needs an oxygen concentrator, is everyone okay? And that's tough when you've also then got to, all right, which customer market, like how are we going to build on product? Because you don't want to drive work when people are stressed somewhere else, and at the same time, you also don't want them to have no distraction. So it's such a difficult balance.
It must have been an incredibly difficult time, and I know it's still, things are still obviously tough in that country. You as a founder and as a business, how did you manage to sort of continue, say, having discussions with potential investors and things like that? Did you find that the digitization of those business relationships sort of accelerated the business, or did it help, or did it hinder things?
I think what we've seen through all conversations we've had is everything has become a lot more efficient. But I think it's become efficient, and I would say it's lost a little bit of its soul. So in some meetings where you wanted to have a bit more soul, that's sort of been missing, whether that's internal meetings or with investors or with potential large customers. And what I'm hoping for now is that now that you've got the tactical advantage of having done things really quickly, and people were really on it. So I think everybody sort of figured out by the end of the summer, this is the life for the next 1 year. Let's get moving. But I think what we definitely saw was there was a bits of soul missing where I think soul would have been really useful, like just that face-to-face conversation with someone. But otherwise, I would say everything's probably been way too efficient. And a lot of what we're trying to do ourselves right now, Mike, is we're trying to find out how do we create mechanisms for a water cooler conversation? How do we create mechanisms for someone to not have to schedule Zoom and just to go up to someone in like digitally, just say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so losing that spontaneity is difficult in tech, in startup culture, which is so important, isn't it? Do you think that new tools might appear that to help? Have you seen it? Have you seen anything that you're kicking the tires on that might assist you in that kind of creativity inside a company?
Yeah, I think so. Look, we've experimented a lot. We've experimented with digital whiteboards. We use a system called Vibe. We've obviously been using Zoom and Slack a lot. But one we came across quite interestingly recently was a team flow, where you can create like virtual offices and rooms and furniture and all sorts. And I first thought like, are people really going to use this? And then I started hearing the most interesting stories. Like our VP of growth, Otto, he did a treasure hunt with his team. And I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. And now I'm actually seeing people just drive up to each other and have a conversation for a couple of minutes and then go back to whatever they were doing. So I think you're going to see a new advent for how companies have to work both in person and remote and some sort of hybrid structure. So it's going to be very interesting what happens.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So what's next for BuilderAI? Where do you think you guys are going to be scaling up of what you're doing? Is it sort of going to be more of the same, or how do you sort of continue to provide new products and services in this environment?
So for us, Mike, it's really about how can we service more customers where we reduce the entry price. Obviously, we've got some product which is free, so you can't reduce it anymore. But how do you reduce the entry price? And how do you reduce the amount of human work needed to deliver that piece of work more and more? And so, through the last 12 months, we've really been able to chip away at massive amounts of things that used to be done by human beings, and now it's a combination of machine, both intelligent and non-intelligent. And for us, the year ahead is expand a little bit more into enterprise. We've seen really interesting customers over the last 12 months. Expand more into the US. So we've really kicked off our US efforts. And I'd say the big one for us is how do we start bringing a lot of the work we've done around conversation and conversational AI into how people order software on our platform. And so you'll be seeing lots of stuff around that very soon. We have a brand new interface where Natasha is center of that interface.
I see. So, well, it sounds like there's plenty more to come from BuilderAI. But for now, thank you so much, Sachin De Duggal, CEO and founder of BuilderAI. Thanks very much for joining Europas Awards 2021.